You have been someone who's been developing this space, thinking about crypto and Bitcoin in particular for a decade. It took a decade for us to get to this point, the spot Bitcoin ETF, when, of course, we saw the brothers, the Winklevi brothers, come out and want to get into this spot Bitcoin ETF scenario. What does it mean to you?
Oh, man. Well, first of all, happy Bitcoin ETF Day. Thank you guys for having me. I think it's a huge deal. I view Bitcoin as the best expression of fiat debasement. What I mean by that is, as nation states and central banks print more of their own currency and devalue it, like devaluing the US dollar, I think Bitcoin is the best expression of that. You can see that most in the rise of Bitcoin's price, and it's because of two things. It's the scarcest asset on the planet. You can't make any more of it. And it's one of the only asset classes in the world that demands energy to acquire it. And so those two things make it the best expression of what's increasingly the biggest problem that money managers have, which is how to take the other side of governments inevitably printing their way out of all this debt. And so the fact that Wall Street said, you know what, those hoodie coders over the last decade, boy, they got loud mouths like that Jack guy, but we got to get in on this too, because the government looks like they're going to stop QT and start QE, and we need to own an asset that protects us, and I think that's Bitcoin. So monumental day, let's go.
All right, Jack, let's go. Jack, do we need 11 different ETFs to do that?
You know who knows best, Ed? The free market. And I think it's important that Wall Street allows for that. So we'll see. The market will tell us. My personal opinion, probably not. That seems a bit excessive, but I'm here for it and I love it. So we'll see. The free market, I think, will fix a lot of this stuff. I also am not entirely sure how Wall Street and their T+2 settlement is going to handle the apex predator that is Bitcoin. I think it'll be an interesting journey over the next 12 months to see how many of these things are left and how they're able to handle an asset that doesn't have off hours, that doesn't have supply that you can go print more of, or that you can call the CEO and tell him to calm down. It's a new beast for Wall Street, but they talk a big game, so hopefully they're plenty capable.
When I posted on X that you were coming on the show and you replied with your apex predator thesis, lots of people had some pretty cerebral questions for you, one of which is, has Bitcoin kind of lost its original ethos by being accessible as an ETF? The wording of one user is the original ethos of Bitcoin gone now that ETFs will start to maintain custody of Bitcoin.
No, the most important principle of Bitcoin is that you're not required to centralize your custody or to conform to a monetary policy that's outside of your control. Anyone can still do whatever they want with Bitcoin. I've got some stored right in the other room, and there's nothing BlackRock could do about that. But if someone wanted to use Bitcoin with BlackRock, go for it. That doesn't break any principle or change any type of culture set whatsoever. Like I said, I think it's monumental that the world has access to a monetary supply where it cannot be inflated and that absolutely demands energy to hold it. Those two things protect you against inflation and the devaluing of currency. And so if people want to get that through BlackRock, I'd question it. I think it's maybe a little expensive. It's not for everybody, but go for it. I don't think it's anyone's position to say what you can or can't do in Bitcoin. That's why it's important.
What's interesting about Strike in particular is you have Strike Private, which you help private clients, ultimately those high net worth individuals, those family offices that did want exposure to Bitcoin before this suddenly incredibly easy ETF was available. Is that in any way going to implicate your business?
So we're seeing all-time high numbers, even back to December. This is now a trend leading up to this event. And the way we think about ourselves is we're one of the best in the world at Bitcoin, if not the best. And what that means is technology, licensing, global access. When it comes to Bitcoin, this new thing, we're one of the best in the world at that. And so Wall Street may take a sector of high net worth institutional clients that we probably never were going to serve anyway, but it lifts all boats. It lifts all boats. I really don't think that this is a winner-take-all or a winner-take-most market. This is an entirely new monetary network, and we're one of the best in the world at it. So we're stoked. We're stoked to see the attention. We're stoked to see the validity. We're stoked to see the maturity, and we're here for it. I think, you know, in 5 to 10 years, being one of the best in the world at this thing is going to be a really, really good business, and that's why I'm the founder and CEO of it. So we're happy.
What's interesting is, of course, in the US, Bitcoin has been seen basically as, well, an asset to be able to bet on. Ultimately, whether or not it's a store of value, it's certainly been one that people have been wanting to gain exposure to see it as volatile, to see the gains. But elsewhere in the world, they do use it as a way of also ultimately being able to transact, to use it as some sort of currency. Now, when does that potentially start to seep into the US? Because at the moment, we've seen the validity of it as an asset, as a store of value, but not as a currency here in the United States.
I'm not, to be honest, guys, I'm not sure it totally matters. So for example, I don't own any dollars anymore. I'm sick of them. You know, I think the real risk is owning dollars because all they do is go down. And traditionally, the game was, well, shoot, what do I own? The government's going to keep printing currency. They're in so much debt. Do I try and own a house? Do I try and own an index of stocks? Do I try and find out what Jeff Bezos is up to now that he's not the CEO of Amazon? And Bitcoin is the most accessible, most simple, best expression of this problem that, you know, Ed, how many people in the world have to deal with fiat debasement? Give me a number. What do you think?
You answer that, Jack.
8 billion, all of us. Everybody is subject to a fiat currency that's devaluing, and everyone has access to this thing. And so if you want to use it for payments, if you want to store it, so for example, I live on credit cards. The US banking system gives me a 30-day revolving door of credit where I could spend dollars without needing to own those pieces of trash. And so I just sit in Bitcoin all day. I spend on credit. And so to me, I don't know. Anyway, does that answer your question? I think Jack, it doesn't totally matter.
Jack, we have 5 seconds. Where does Bitcoin peak in 2024?
I think we see new highs this year, and I think this thing lands between 250K to $1 million, around the $500,000 range at some point in 25. I think there's a lot of money printing that the government's going to have to do, and this is the fastest horse